In fact, I would value this book at roughly $40,000. You are quite fortunate, I must say. I think you saved my job. You may give me some chocolate or anything as a thank you." When it came to Pawn Stars, Rebecca Romney appeared like the ideal rare book specialist. Calm, intelligent, and someone Rick Harrison personally trusts. However, everything changed in 2014. The presentation featured a $40,000 stolen book. The FBI then intervened and asked Rebecca how the stolen books ended up on national television. She abruptly left the show in January 2015 without giving a reason. No farewell, no formal declaration. We're revealing today what actually transpired behind the scenes and the reasons the truth was suppressed for so long. On April 6, 1985, Rebecca Romney was born in Phoenix, Arizona, a warm desert city. There was nothing in her life at the time that suggested rare volumes or manuscripts worth millions of dollars. She even made a joke about old books being dull artifacts for elderly males. She aspired to become a translator or philosopher. She had a passion for profound conversations, languages, and ideas that had nothing to do with the auction world she would eventually rule. Thinking she would live her entire life in classes, she enrolled in college at the age of 18. She was proficient in English, French, Japanese, Latin, ancient Greek, and even some Old English by the time she was 22. She spent 12 hours a day researching in order to teach herself. She once aced a university exam in which she translated a Greek papyrus from 300 BC. Her abilities would subsequently enable her to unearth frauds that might have cost collectors millions of dollars, and professors were horrified. She attended Brigham Young University to study philosophy and classical studies from 2003 to 2007. Rebecca was occupied with deciphering ancient texts in their original forms and arguing free will in 4-hour courses, while her peers were selecting safer majors. She completed extra coursework, achieved a flawless GPA, and received awards for graduating. Comparing 200 Greek fragments of Plato's Republic was the focus of her thesis. This odd combination of ancient language and philosophy was preparing her for something amazing, but no one realized it at the time. She committed a life-altering error shortly after graduating in 2007. Rebecca applied for what she believed to be a simple managerial position at Philadelphia's Bowman Rare Books. However, she discovered she had misread the job posting when she arrived for the interview. She had no idea what it was for a rare book specialist. She nearly left. Rather, she remained, acknowledged her lack of expertise, and was hired nevertheless. They were impressed with her language abilities, and that was sufficient. She handled books worth more than most homes in a matter of months. First editions of Isaac Newton's Principia Mathematica, a page from the Gutenberg Bible, and a 1623 Shakespeare folio. She was thrust into a world where a single error may have disastrous consequences. 3 years later, in 2010, she was elevated to the position of gallery manager in Las Vegas. Her age was 26. She was the youngest senior director in the company's history by 2013, when she was 29 years old. She was in charge of catalogs, auctions, and private sales worth over $10 million annually in that capacity. For a book printed in 1472, one of her clients paid $300,000. She was also more than just a skilled salesperson. No one else could see the fakes she was exposing. Rebecca Romney was not discovered by Rick Harrison during a casting call. He was previously acquainted with her. She started working at Bowman Rare Books when they opened a Las Vegas office back in 2007. By 2010, she was in charge of the establishment. Since 1989, Rick had operated Gold and Silver Pawn. Additionally, there wasn't much of a rare book and antiquity scene in Vegas. Local gatherings, personal connections, and a mutual fascination with history brought them together. Therefore, Rick didn't ask producers to find an expert when he wanted someone who really understood old paper, not just books, but documents, signatures, and handwriting. He grabbed the phone and dialed her number. She made her debut on Pawn Stars in 2011 as a result of the call. off camera as someone you already trust, rather than as a hired TV personality. After filming, they became friends. They even went on 2 dates at once. The calm book's clever expert on television wasn't simply a good fit, but fans didn't realize that. She was chosen by hand. She was given a stack of documents from the Civil War era when she appeared on camera for the first time in season 4 on April 4, 2011. One of them was an 1861 Confederate bond worth $5,000 if it were authentic. She looked at the ink, the texture of the paper, and even the printing technique. She revealed a fake signature in less than 10 minutes, reducing the value from $10,000 to a few $100s. The audience was riveted to the screen. While the cameras were rolling, she spoke confidently and subtly double-checked details. She was more than just another guest expert by the end of the show. She was the star of the show and the book lady. The ratings increased by 15%. From then on, Rebecca was the person the pawn store called whenever they received anything made of paper, books, letters, or historical papers. She made about 30 appearances between 2011 and 2020, with the first 4 years seeing the most activity. She valued everything from an original broadside of the Declaration of Independence, valued at $15, to a $2,000 duplicate of a letter sent by Christopher Columbus in 1493. She astounded everyone in 2013 when she verified notes that were discovered to be connected to Edgar Allan Poe and concealed within a book that was believed to be worthless. She even handled documents pertaining to the slave trade in the 19th century and described how to assign value to something so strongly associated with suffering and the past. She was doing over 3/4 of the show's paper-related critiques by 2014. She had some difficult calls. At one point, she disproved a phony Shakespeare folio that someone thought was worth $10. No, it wasn't. It wasn't just her knowledge that set her apart. It was the way she said it. Rebecca never spoke loudly. She never appeared shaken. She could sound like she was gently telling what's for lunch while dropping a bombshell, such as stating that a $50,000 book was a part of an 1800s forgery ring that turned into her thing. She maintained composure and clarity as other experts displayed their excitement. Chumley nearly lost his job in 2012 because he purchased a book without doing any research. We mistakenly called him Mark Lindbergh after he spent $500 on a signed copy of Charles Lindbergh's 1927 memoirs. Everyone at the store believed it to be a phony. Rick even threatened to permanently remove Chumley's next day off if the signature didn't match. Once more, Rebecca Romney took over. She produced an authenticated copy and contrasted the signature, highlighting how Lindbergh's autograph style evolved with his rise to fame. As it happens, it was real. Triple the amount Chumley had paid, she valued it at $1,500. In addition to making a healthy profit, it prevented Chumley from losing his job. A near catastrophe became one of his infrequent victories with a single little signature. On another occasion, someone entered with what appeared to be Revolutionary War bonds and declared them to be quite valuable. But the truth was even stranger when Rebecca looked more closely. These were not just uncommon, they were also Confederate and not revolutionary. They had vanished. Following the conclusion of the Civil War in 1865, these records had disappeared. They were connected to assets taken from the South and put onto the USS Republic. In the same year, a ship was destroyed by a hurricane. After the wreck was found in 2003, some of its rusted contents were retrieved by 2005. These bonds had legal ramifications, but were a part of that history and may have been worth $50. Selling stolen goods could put the store in legal hot water. The police were called. Rebecca's thorough investigation prevented the store from purchasing something that could have resulted in legal action, demonstrating that history can have repercussions. Then there was the occasion when someone believed they had struck gold with the 1623 first folio of Shakespeare. Millions of dollars have been spent on actual copies of that book. in 2021 even brought in $9.98 million. Rebecca looked at the seller's copy and saw that it was flawed, even if it looked good. The paper's aging was flawed. In addition to lacking the minute imperfections that authentic 400-year-old books invariably have, the ink appeared overly pristine. She thought it was a fake, perhaps influenced by the deceptive collection created by Thomas Pavier and William Jaggard in 1619, known as the false folio. This one wasn't even close, but even those are valuable. The store might have lost thousands of dollars if Rick had purchased it. They avoided one of the most expensive errors in Pawn Stars history because, to her, keen observation. On other occasions, however, the objects were equally intense and as real as they could be. That's what happened when a copy of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species was brought in. On its first day of publication, November 24, 1859, the book sold out. There were just 250 copies produced. Rebecca recognized it as legitimate after glancing at the schematics, the advertisements from June 1859, and the green cloth binding. It was worth $75,000 to her. It is impossible to overestimate Darwin's book's influence. It permanently changed both religion and science. Not even Newton or Copernicus had shocked people like that. A few copies have sold for more than $500,000, particularly those that contain Darwin's personal notes. Later editions don't have quite the same value. For instance, Darwin's weird whale-bear fable was omitted from the 1861 edition, which is only worth about $9,500. However, everything changed with that initial printing, and most collectors dream of finding one like this one, which was sitting in the store. She gained popularity among fans between 2011 and 2015, particularly after she reviewed a first edition of Frankenstein in an episode that sparked heated debates on internet forums. Both the book and the response it caused were worth $20,000. She immediately amassed tens of thousands of followers after people began referring to her as the book whisperer. She should have more screen time, viewers pleaded the producers. A spin-off was even requested by some. Behind the scenes, however, things weren't always flawless. One of the most bizarre and unnerving theories about Pawn Stars was subtly sparked by an episode that aired in 2014. A man who claimed to have a rare 1841 version of the Book of Mormon entered the gold and silver pawn store. After closely examining it, the show's rare book expert, Rebecca Romney, determined its value to be $40. Nevertheless, the vendor sought $100,000. Rick Harrison was able to purchase it for just $24,000 after some haggling. At first glance, it appeared to be another excellent bargain for the store. Then, however, things began to fall apart. There were rumors that the book had been taken from the University of Utah Marriott Library. Federal officials reportedly intervened shortly after the episode aired. These tales claimed that the FBI took the book and fled the pawn store empty-handed. Although no charges were made public and no formal statement was ever issued, the story gathered traction on YouTube and Reddit. Federal officials allegedly questioned Rebecca Romney in late 2014, around the time the FBI allegedly became involved. Rumor had it that the agents were curious about how stolen history volumes might appear on national television without causing a stir. This was not a unique instance. The FBI had already given back stolen volumes to Sweden's National Library in 2015. Forbes, Smiley had been arrested earlier in 2005 and 2006 for stealing rare maps valued at millions of dollars. Although Romney was never charged with any wrongdoing, several people think the interrogation had a significant impact on her. She was well known for evaluating thousands of dollars worth of books with assurance. Her judgment was now clouded. January 10, 2015 followed. In what would be her final Pawn Stars appearance, Rebecca Romney evaluated a 1734 pirate book. Rick, as usual, haggled the price down to $400, even though she said it was worth $1. She vanished in an instant. There was no farewell after 19 episodes and 4 years on the show. Her absence was not explained by the History Channel. Questions flooded the forums. Had she lost her job? Was the scandal involved? Some even thought that she had left because of a personal tragedy. Others drew attention to the show's mounting criticism, allegations of fabricated assessments, arranged transactions, and internal disputes. Fans, however, saw something strange. Rebecca Romney never deleted Pawn Stars from her LinkedIn profile, despite her disappearance from the show. She continues to identify herself as the rare book specialist as of right now, having done so since 2011. Some people think it's merely marketing. Some believe it could be a clause in a non-disclosure agreement. In any case, it continues to associate her with a program on which she hasn't made frequent appearances in years. She relocated to Philadelphia in 2016. It was for a promotion officially. She departed the Las Vegas gallery to take a position as senior director at Bauman Rare Books, where she oversaw catalogs and library purchases. She subsequently landed in Washington, D.C., where she co-founded a new rare book company after working in Brooklyn. Therefore, even if her leaving had a completely valid reason, the timing nonetheless caused some people to wonder. Why was the decision made only a few months after the Book of Mormon controversy? Was there more going on behind closed doors? Or was it just job advancement? Fans saw her for the first time in 2022. She returned to the crew in Washington, D.C. for a special edition of Pawn Stars to America and evaluated an additional pirated book. Her relationship with the team remained unchanged. She made fun of Chumley. She made a joke with Corey, but it simply added to the confusion surrounding her protracted departure. In 2016, Rebecca Romney wed novelist and historical scholar J.P. Romney, who also loved literature. The fact that J.P. had family ties to one of the most well-known figures in American politics added to the story's unusualness. Mitt Romney, who campaigned for president in 2012 and received almost half of the country's votes, was distantly related to him. Through this marriage, Rebecca became somewhat associated with a dynasty that included George Romney, the former governor of Michigan from 1963 to 1969. She has never met Mitt Romney, though in spite of all these connections. Although it was more of a name than a relationship, the connection was genuine. Her notoriety from Pawn Stars was still relatively new at the time. From 2011 until 2015, she appeared on the show, even evaluating a rare map from 1507 that was valued at $1 million. However, the marriage terminated in 2023. Now that JP was her ex-husband, viewers started to wonder if politics had ever been involved in her path. However, Rebecca maintained that she was solely responsible for her own journey in the rare book industry. She and JP wrote a book the year following her marriage that caught everyone off guard. On March 14, 2017, Printer's Error: Irreverent Stories from Book History was released. With 368 pages, it wasn't a light read. Strange, forgotten moments from printing history were revealed in the book. Incidents that never specifically mention Gutenberg by name, such as the mystery surrounding the 1455 printing of the Gutenberg Bible, Charles Dickens's copyright battle in the 1840s, and even fake copies of Galileo's work. There are just 48 copies of that Bible left, and they are valued at tens of millions of dollars each. The book successfully blended JP's storytelling with Rebecca's real-world experience. It was well received by critics, sold well, and gave her a respected voice outside of the screen, something that few reality TV stars are able to do. In the same year, JP had recently released his own book, The Monster on the Road Is Me, and Rebecca was still well known for her 2013 Pawn Stars appraisal of a $100,000 Shakespeare folio. The project was one of their final public partnerships, but it also represented a creative high point for them both. Rebecca has drawn a clear line despite the public's interest in her marriage and its potential political repercussions. She hardly ever mentions the Romney name. She stated unequivocally in a 2023 interview that she has never even met Mitt. It is very evident how far apart they are on a personal and professional level. No one knows the names or ages of her two children. Fans have also noted how little she is ready to say, even if she maintains the Romney name professionally. She dismissed inquiries about love and fame in a fan Q&A. Her personal life only became prominent when Printer's Error was out, and even then, it was centered around the art rather than the marriage. In 2020, she edited a science fiction anthology called Projections, where she made sure the stories, not herself, were the main focus. Some people think that by keeping quiet, she is avoiding political ramifications, particularly in a world where rare books might introduce her to collectors from various backgrounds. Reality TV wasn't the only thing that Rebecca Romney left. She had a plan when she left it. After working with Pawn Stars for years, she co-founded Type Punch Matrix, a rare book company in Silver Spring, Maryland, in 2019. This was no small antique store nestled in a corner. It was a declaration. She and her partner, Brian Cassidy, created a company that defied all expectations in the antique industry. Not only was their inventory costly, but it was also audacious. Gutenberg Bible leaves, Shakespeare folios, and titles that weren't simply uncommon but revolutionary. In less than a year, they were selling to high-end customers and shipping items valued at hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Additionally, Rebecca distinguished out in a field dominated by older men because she was observant, outspoken, and not scared to question the rules. Her disobedience, however, began earlier. The Honey and Wax Book Collecting Prize was established in 2017 by her and Heather O'Donnell. Women under 30 who had assembled the most inventive and unexpected book collections were awarded $1 annually. The cost of the books didn't matter to them. How much they meant mattered to them. In 2023, a tattoo artist's hybrid plant pieces won. In 2024, a national security expert with a military motif took first place. Something had caught Rebecca's attention. Although they were reluctant to identify as collectors, women had a strong interest for collecting. That was altered by this reward. Supported by Christie's and Biblio, it provided them with credibility, visibility, and a legitimate position in the rare book market. It has inspired innumerable women and recognized 9 by 2025. Another change occurred in the same year. On February 18, 2025, Rebecca made Jane Austen's bookshelves available. It was more than a book. It was a literary treasure trove. She referred to it as the Great Forgetting, the historical erasure of the female authors who influenced Austen's universe: Charlotte Smith, Anne Radcliffe, and Frances Burney. In the past, these women had thousands of print runs and were best-selling names. The majority of their work is currently out of print. According to Rebecca's research, approximately 10 to 15% of novels written by women in the 18th century have survived to this day, while 40% of novels written by men have. She did more than simply identify the issue. Readers listened as she presented the proof, book after book, number by number. It was described as bold and incisive by the New York Times. It was exciting, according to the Washington Post. The Guardian described it as energetic and instinctive. It sold more than 20,000 copies in a few weeks. And what most surprised people? Rebecca acknowledged that the majority of the ladies she was writing about were unknown to her. Not while she was a rare book merchant, not while she was pursuing her degree. Although Austen had read Charlotte Lennox and Maria Edgeworth, she had never done so. She had read the men, Richardson and Fielding. She was struck with that realization. These voices had been subtly silenced throughout her entire schooling. How many others had missed it too, if someone like her hadn't noticed it? So she began to gather. She started looking for original editions of works by the women who influenced Austen in 2015, including Charlotte Smith's 1788 Emmeline, Radcliffe's 1794, The Mysteries of Udolpho, and Frances Burney's 1778 Evina. It was difficult to locate these. Because they were written by women, many were lost or written off as emotional or frivolous. She scoured through estates, flew to auctions, and once fought bidders for a copy of Charlotte Lennox's 1759 novel, The Female Quixote. She had more than 50 rare books in her collection by 2025, all of which were resurrections. She did more than merely gather. Those books were her proof. She kept note of how many survived, how many were printed, and how critics responded to them. She discovered that the likelihood of women's literature being preserved, republished, or taught in schools was significantly lower. Radcliffe's work was excluded from the canon, despite the fact that she served as an inspiration to Poe, Shelley, and the entire Gothic tradition. In the 18th century, Francis Burney sold 3,000 copies, but by 1850 he had vanished. Dowadsworth's career was also influenced by the poetry of Charlotte Smith. She did, however, fade into almost quiet. Rebecca demonstrated that sexism wasn't limited to reviews by using these tendencies. It was ingrained in literature's ability to endure. The narrative of Rebecca Romney doesn't start in an old library. Her first televised appearance as a rare book expert took place beneath the neon lights of a pawn shop in Las Vegas. However, that improbable start managed to get her into the most prestigious circles of American bibliophilia. The Greuer Club in New York is one of them. It is the oldest and most prestigious book collectors association in the nation, having been established in 1884. Only 825 individuals worldwide are eligible to identify as members. Rebecca, however, will be there in May 2025 to give a talk called Jane Austen's Bookshelf, Collecting as Investigation. That conversation started in 2023 when she happened upon a Victorian copy of Frances Burney's Ivana. Everything changed because of that book. It took her on a quest to find the women who had influenced Austen, but had largely been forgotten about the canon. She is actively rewriting literary history rather than merely recounting it. She has also been a mainstay of the Antiquarian Book Lectures since 2015. Over 100 would-be rare book traders come to study under her each year. She informs them that the world of rare books isn't always pure, which is something that most people seldom hear. She is candid about the Thomas J. Wise forgeries of the 1930s, a scandal that deceived specialists for decades with over 50 phony first editions. She demonstrates how collecting is about discovering rather than merely possessing. She teaches more than just market worth. They made the secret fingerprints of writers who had been lost by history visible. Among them was Burney, whose 1778 book helped establish Pride and Prejudice and sold 500 copies in its initial printing. People are starting to realize that because of Rebecca's work. Additionally, she is altering the authentication process for rare books. She was a co-founder of Type Punch Matrix in 2019, but it wasn't just another publishing company. By 2023, she was utilizing blockchain and artificial intelligence to verify provenance using a test case involving a $50 novel by Sylvia Plath ownership of the software could be traced back to 1956. This was no chance leap. It developed from the scams she revealed in her 2017 book, Printer's Error, which explored the history of counterfeit books, such as the 1840s counterfeit Gutenberg Bibles. By 2022, she was collaborating with tech companies to create tools that were unthinkable for most collectors. Among these were spectral ink scanners, which are 95% accurate at identifying forgeries, things that even the human eye would overlook. One of these instruments discovered a fake Columbus letter from 1493 in 2024. She also failed to secure these tools away. She invited them to attend her workshops. In just the last year, more than 200 dealers were trained to utilize them. All people had access to techniques that were previously only available at the Smithsonian. She even began developing virtual reality (VR) simulations that let users interact with rare books, virtually without ever having to touch the actual ones. It's transformation, not merely preservation. Her aspirations, however, did not end there. She plans to grow Type Punch Matrix into museum consultancy by 2025. Since its modest $100,000 launch in 2019, the business has valued more than 1,000 rare artifacts, with a combined market value of over $10 million. Among them was a manuscript from the 16th century that was displayed at the 2023 Boston Book Fair. Another was the record-breaking sale of 2,000 romance novels for $250,000, 16 hours in 2022, which she assisted the Little Library in acquiring. These are declarations rather than merely commercial successes. Getting underrepresented voices into institutional collections is the main emphasis of her current consulting. She assisted in organizing an exhibition in 2024 that highlighted Black writers of the 18th century. There are now 10 members of her Silver Spring, Maryland team. Through museum agreements alone, her consultancy strategy might generate $2 million annually if it is successful.